Caleb's heart raced as his ship spiraled out of control, alarms blaring all around him. He had been on a routine mission to scout new planets for Earth's growing need for resources. But now, his spacecraft was plummeting through the atmosphere of an unknown world. The view outside the window was a blur of red and orange as the ground rushed up to meet him. With a loud crash, the ship hit the surface, throwing Caleb violently against his seat restraints. The world went black for a moment before his eyes fluttered open. He was alive. Barely. Pain shot through his body as he unbuckled himself and staggered to the door, his head spinning. The ship's hull had been damaged beyond repair. Caleb knew he wouldn't be able to call for help. The only thing he could do was survive and figure out where he had landed. He stumbled out of the wreckage and onto the foreign ground. The air was thick with strange scents, and the sky above was a mixture of purple and green. Tall, alien trees surrounded him, their branches twisting in unnatural shapes. Caleb took a deep breath, trying to stay calm despite the chaos. His only option was to move forward and find shelter. As he walked through the thick foliage, a sudden rustle of leaves caught his attention. He spun around, his breath quickening. His heart skipped a beat when he saw her, an alien figure, tall and elegant, stepping silently from the shadows. She had soft, pale skin, a strange hue of blue that shimmered under the alien light. Her hair, long and silver, cascaded down her back like a waterfall. But it was her eyes that held him captive, eyes that seemed to pierce through him, full of curiosity and something more. The woman stopped a few feet away from him, her gaze never leaving his face. Caleb took a hesitant step back, unsure of what to expect. "You are not from here," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, though it carried an edge of authority. It wasn't the language he knew, but somehow he understood her words as if they were his own. He nodded slowly. I don't know where I am. My ship crashed." She studied him for a moment, her eyes narrowing. "I know what you are," she said softly, more to herself than to him. Then, without another word, she turned and began to walk away, her movements graceful and fluid. Caleb's mind raced. Who was she? What was she? He hesitated, but then his survival instincts kicked in. He followed her, hoping she could help him. As he moved closer, he noticed the strange markings on her skin, symbols he didn't understand but felt a strange sense of recognition from. She stopped suddenly and turned back to face him. Her expression had softened, yet there was something unreadable in her eyes. "You should not be here, human," she said. Caleb frowned. "I didn't have a choice. My ship crashed here. Can you help me?" The alien woman studied him for a moment longer before speaking again, her voice calm yet full of an unspoken authority. "Perhaps I can, but your presence here, it will change everything." Before Caleb could respond, the woman disappeared into the shadows, leaving him standing in the middle of the strange, alien landscape, his thoughts racing. Who was she? And what did she mean by saying his presence would change everything? He had no answers yet, but one thing was clear. His life had just taken an unexpected turn. Caleb couldn't stop thinking about the strange woman who had appeared from the shadows. Who was she? What did she mean by saying his presence would change everything? His mind raced with questions, but for now he had no answers. He had no choice but to follow her. As the hours passed, Caleb wandered deeper into the alien forest. The trees here seemed ancient, their roots tangled in the ground like a maze. Strange noises echoed through the air, some familiar, some completely foreign. The atmosphere was thick with humidity, making every breath feel heavier. He knew he had to find shelter soon. His survival instincts pushed him forward, but there was a feeling of unease creeping into his chest. Just as he was about to give in to exhaustion, Caleb noticed a faint light in the distance. It wasn't natural. It shimmered in a way that felt both inviting and mysterious. Without thinking, he moved toward it, hoping it would lead him to something, anything that could help. As he approached, the light grew brighter. It came from a clearing up ahead, and there, Standing in the center was the alien woman. But this time, she wasn't alone. A group of figures surrounded her, all with the same strange, glowing skin. They seemed to be waiting for something, or someone. Caleb's heart raced, and he slowed his pace. What were they doing? Were they hostile? The alien woman noticed him immediately, her piercing eyes locking onto his. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, signaling for him to approach. "Come closer, human," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You are safe here." Hesitant, Caleb took a few cautious steps forward, still unsure of what was happening. As he reached the edge of the clearing, the other figures moved aside, parting like a silent audience at a theater. The woman stepped forward, her gaze never leaving him. "I am Zura," she said, introducing herself with a tone of authority. "And these are my people." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Your people?" he asked, confusion evident in his voice. "Are they all like you?" Zara nodded. "Yes, we are all of the same race. We are the descendants of an ancient civilization, one that once ruled over many worlds. But now we are scattered, isolated. You are the first human to set foot on our planet." A sudden realization hit Caleb. He wasn't just stranded on any alien world. This was a world full of powerful beings, ones who had the ability to shape and rule entire galaxies. But why had Zara brought him here? And what did she want? Before he could ask any more questions, Zara spoke again, her voice low. "I've been watching you, Caleb, watching your species for years, and now I have a request." Caleb frowned. "A request? What do you want from me?" Zora's eyes softened, but there was still a glint of determination in them. "You see, I am the daughter of the queen, and I have a duty. But I do not want what is expected of me. I want something different, something more." Caleb didn't know what to say. He had no idea what she was talking about, but there was something in her voice that made him feel like he was about to be swept into something far beyond his control. Zara stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "Caleb, I want you. You, the human who has no idea what he is walking into. I have seen the strength in your heart. I want you to help me." Caleb's mind spun. What was she asking? Why him? He had no answers, but one thing was certain. His journey on this strange planet was just beginning, and it was about to become far more complicated than he could ever have imagined. Caleb stood in the clearing, still trying to process what Zara had just said. The weight of her words hung in the air like a dense fog. She wanted him, not just for companionship, but for something deeper, something far more complicated. His mind raced, trying to grasp the full meaning of her words. She was the daughter of a queen, someone important. What kind of world was he in? Was this some sort of trick? Or was Zara serious? He couldn't even begin to understand why she would choose him, a human who had crash-landed on her planet, over everything else she could have. "You want me?" Caleb finally managed to ask, his voice steady but with a hint of disbelief. Zara met his gaze, her eyes intense, yet strangely kind. "Yes, Caleb, I want you." She paused, then added, "But I can't do this alone." "Do what alone?" Caleb asked, his confusion only deepening. She turned away for a moment, looking out at the figures standing quietly around them, as though searching for the right words. When she turned back, there was a seriousness in her expression. "I am supposed to marry another, a prince from a neighboring planet. It's an alliance my mother has arranged for me, a marriage that would unite our people. But I do not want that life. I want freedom. I want to make my own choices, and I want you to help me." Caleb's heart pounded as the pieces started to fall into place. She wasn't just asking for his help to survive in this alien world. She was asking for something far more. Zara wanted him to help her break free from her royal duties, to escape a life that had been chosen for her. "This prince," Caleb began, trying to understand the full picture, "doesn't sound like he's the type to let you just leave him. Zora's eyes darkened for a moment. No, he won't. And my mother won't either. The Queen has always believed in tradition. She believes in strength, in power, in alliances that will keep our people strong. But what my mother doesn't understand is that I want more. I want something real. She stepped closer to Caleb, her voice dropping to a whisper. I want you. A sudden fear gripped Caleb. He wasn't prepared for any of this. He had no experience with royal politics, no understanding of their complex alien culture. He was just a man, a human who was stuck on an alien planet, far from home. But as he looked into Zora's eyes, he saw something there, a raw honesty, a desperation for freedom that he couldn't ignore. It mirrored the struggles he had faced back on Earth. He knew what it felt like to be trapped, to have your life mapped out for you without a say in the matter. And for some reason, he couldn't bring himself to turn away from her. I don't know what to say, Caleb admitted. I've never been involved in anything like this. I don't know how I can help you. Zara smiled softly. You don't need to know how. All you need to do is be with me. Stay with me. Together, we can break free from what they expect of me. Together, we can be free. Caleb felt the weight of her words settle over him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't just about him getting off this planet. Zara was offering him something much bigger, something that could change the course of both their lives forever. He didn't have all the answers, but in that moment, he made a decision. He couldn't abandon her. He couldn't walk away from someone who was willing to risk everything for the chance to live her own life. I'll stay, Caleb said, his voice firm. Zora's eyes softened with relief. Thank you, Caleb. You don't know what this means to me. But as Zara spoke, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far bigger and more dangerous than either of them realized. Days that followed felt like a blur to Caleb. Every moment seemed to pass faster than the last as he tried to adjust to his new life on this strange world. Zara had taken him to a hidden city, deep within the heart of the alien planet. It was a place of beauty and mystery, built from ancient stone structures that reached high into the sky. Everything here felt both familiar and foreign, and Caleb couldn't help but wonder how he, a mere human, fit into this vast alien world. Zara had been kind, guiding him through the city's winding streets and introducing him to a few of her trusted allies. Some were wary of him, rightfully so. He was, after all, an outsider in their midst. But Zara had spoken up for him, insisting that Caleb was someone they could trust. In the quiet moments between their adventures, Caleb and Zara found themselves growing closer. She would tell him stories of her people, their long history, their struggles, and their customs. The more he listened, the more he realized how much Zara was burdened by her royal status. She wasn't just a princess. She was a prisoner of expectations, trapped by a future she had no say in. One evening, as the two of them sat by the edge of a peaceful lake, Zara opened up to Caleb in a way she hadn't before. You don't understand what it's like, she said softly, her eyes fixed on the rippling water. My entire life has been planned out for me. From the moment I was born, I was told I would marry for power, not for love. I was told I would rule, not as a person, but as a symbol for our people. Caleb watched her, feeling a pang of sympathy. He had never known what it was like to be in her shoes, to be tied to a future you had no choice in. But he understood what it was like to be stuck, to feel like your life was slipping away from you without any control. You don't have to do it alone, Caleb said, his voice steady. I'm here. I'll help you. Zara looked up at him, her eyes shining in the dimming light. There was a spark in her gaze, a flicker of hope that hadn't been there before. I know. And for the first time in my life, I believe there's a chance for me to choose my own path. Their hands brushed briefly, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared. There was no queen, no prince, no duty, just the two of them, sitting side by side, sharing a quiet, unspoken understanding. But despite the growing bond between them, Caleb knew that things couldn't stay like this forever. The alien queen, Zora's mother, would not just let her daughter walk away. He could feel the tension building, like a storm on the horizon. And yet, he couldn't bring himself to turn away. He didn't know where this journey would lead, but for the first time since he crashed on this planet, Caleb felt like he was part of something greater. He didn't know what the future held, but whatever it was, he would face it with Zora by his side. They were in this together. And that, he thought, was all that mattered. As the last of the sunlight faded behind the mountains, Zora turned to Caleb. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of emotion, "for believing in me." Caleb smiled, his heart full. "I believe in you, Zora, and I always will." The bond between them had grown stronger, but both of them knew that it would be tested soon. The Queen's wrath would not be easily avoided. But no matter what came next, Caleb had already made his choice. He would stand by Zora, no matter the cost. The days after Caleb's confession were filled with both excitement and tension. As the bond between him and Zora grew stronger, the threat of discovery loomed over them like a dark cloud. Caleb could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, but each time he looked at Zora, he knew there was no turning back. Zora, too, seemed torn between her growing feelings for Caleb and the heavy responsibility she carried as the daughter of the Queen. Every conversation she had with Caleb was a quiet rebellion against the life that had been chosen for her. In the moments they shared, they found solace in each other's company, but those moments were fleeting, overshadowed by the ever-present fear that they would be torn apart. One evening, as the two of them walked through the quiet streets of the hidden city, Zora's face was troubled. She had been quiet all day, her usual spark missing from her eyes. Caleb noticed immediately and stopped, turning to her. "Zora, what's wrong?" Caleb asked gently, concern filling his voice. Zora looked up at him, her expression pained. "It's my mother," she said, her voice soft. "She's growing more suspicious. She has spies everywhere, and they've been watching me. They know I've been meeting with you. She doesn't trust you, Caleb." Caleb's heart sank. He had expected something like this, but hearing Zora say it aloud made the reality of their situation hit him harder than ever. The Queen was powerful, and her control over her people was absolute. If she discovered the truth about Caleb and Zora, there would be consequences, dangerous ones. "What are we going to do?" Caleb asked, his mind racing. "We can't keep hiding forever. Eventually, she's going to find out." Zora's eyes darkened. "I know, but I won't marry that prince. I can't. My mother can force me to do many things, but she can't make me love someone I don't. I've spent my life doing what's expected of me, but I won't give up my heart now." Caleb reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Then we'll face it together. Whatever happens, I'm not leaving you." Zora's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. "But you don't understand. If my mother finds out, she will never let us be together. She will tear us apart. She will. She will make sure you're never seen again." The gravity of her words struck Caleb deeply. He had known their relationship was dangerous, but hearing Zora speak of the Queen's power so plainly made it real in a way that nothing else had. "I'm not afraid of her," Caleb said, his voice unwavering. "I've faced worse before, but I won't let her take you from me." Zora squeezed his hand, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand. You're a human. In her eyes, you're nothing more than a tool, a pawn. And if she doesn't want you to have a place here, she will make sure you have none." Caleb stood silently for a moment, taking in her words. But then, he took a deep breath. "I know who I am, and I know what I want. I want to be with you, Zora. And if it means going up against your mother and everything she believes in, then so be it. I won't back down. We'll fight for this, for us." Zora's eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. She reached up to touch his cheek, her fingers tracing the lines of his face, as though memorizing every detail. "You're brave, Caleb. More than you know. But you must understand, The path we are on is dangerous, and we have no idea where it will lead. I don't care about the danger, Caleb replied, his voice full of determination. As long as you're with me, I'll face anything. For a moment, they stood there in silence, the weight of their decisions settling over them. But it wasn't just fear that filled the air. It was love, a love that was as forbidden as it was strong. And in that moment, Caleb knew one thing for certain. He would fight for Zara, no matter the cost. They would face whatever the future held together, and nothing, not even a queen's wrath, could take that from them. The tension in the city was palpable. Caleb could feel it in the air, thick and suffocating. It wasn't just the usual unease that came from being on an alien planet. It was something more, something darker. Zara's mother, the queen, had finally caught wind of their growing closeness. Caleb knew it was only a matter of time before everything they had fought for came crashing down. Zara had become distant in the past few days, her usual confidence replaced by a quiet, almost unbearable worry. Caleb tried to talk to her, but she would only offer him a forced smile and tell him that everything would be fine. He could see through her facade. Zara was scared. And if Zara was scared, then they were in real danger. One evening, as the two of them sat in a quiet courtyard, Zara's face was a mixture of fear and determination. She finally looked at Caleb, her eyes meeting his with a seriousness he had never seen before. "It's time," Zara said, her voice low. "We can't hide any longer. My mother knows about us." Caleb's stomach twisted at the words. He had known this day was coming, but hearing it from Zara made it feel more real. They couldn't keep running. They couldn't keep hiding. The queen's wrath would come, and there would be no escaping it. "What does she want?" Caleb asked, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. Zara looked away, staring at the darkening sky. "She wants me to return to the palace. She wants me to marry the prince. And if I refuse, she will make sure you're sent back to Earth, or worse." Caleb's heart pounded. He had known that the queen wouldn't just let Zara go, but the idea that the queen could send him back to Earth, away from Zara, was unbearable. He had already come to care for her more than he thought was possible, and the thought of losing her to political schemes was something he couldn't accept. "I won't let her do that," Caleb said, his voice firm. "I won't let her tear us apart." Zara looked at him, her eyes filled with sadness and longing. "You don't understand. The queen is not just powerful, she is feared. She has the entire galaxy behind her. If I don't do what she says, she will destroy everything I've ever known. She will destroy you." Caleb felt the weight of her words. He knew she was right. The queen was more than just a ruler. She was a force of nature, and her wrath was something no one could withstand. But Caleb also knew that he couldn't let Zara go through this alone. He had made a promise to her, and he would keep it, no matter the cost. "We'll fight," Caleb said, determination in his voice. "We'll find a way. Together." Zara shook her head, her expression softening. "Caleb, you don't understand. This isn't a fight we can win. If we resist her, we'll lose everything. Our lives will be forfeit. And even if we manage to escape, we'll never be safe." The words stung, but Caleb's resolve did not waver. He reached out and took Zara's hand in his. "I don't care about safety. I care about you, and I'll fight for us, no matter the cost." Zara looked at him for a long moment, searching his face as though looking for the answer to a question only she could ask. Finally, she nodded. "Then we'll fight together. I won't run from her anymore. But we have to be smart. We can't win with just courage. We'll need a plan." Caleb nodded, determination flooding his chest. They had no time to waste. The queen's wrath was coming, and they needed to be ready. As the stars began to twinkle above them, Caleb and Zara knew the path ahead would be dangerous. But no matter what lay in their future, they had one thing they had never had before: each other. And that, Caleb thought, was enough to face whatever came next. The following days were filled with quiet urgency. Caleb and Zara knew they couldn't wait any longer. The Queen's spies were growing more active, and it was only a matter of time before they would come for Zara. They had to act fast, or they would both be trapped forever. Zara, though conflicted, was resolute. She had made the decision to leave, to fight for the life she wanted, even if it meant risking everything. But she knew they couldn't do it alone. They needed a plan, something clever, something that would give them a chance to escape before the Queen's forces closed in on them. Caleb and Zara spent hours in the quiet of the hidden city, discussing their options. It wasn't just about running. They had to outsmart the Queen and her spies. They needed a way to get past the palace guards, to leave the planet without being caught. Every move had to be calculated. Every second counted. "We'll need a distraction," Zara said one evening, pacing back and forth in their small hideout. "The Queen has her eyes on me now. If we try to leave without her knowing, she'll have every guard on the planet searching for us. We need to cause confusion, something that will buy us enough time." Caleb listened intently, his mind working quickly. "A distraction," he repeated, nodding. "We need something big, something loud." Zara stopped pacing and turned to him. "Exactly. I know of a way to trigger a small rebellion in the city. It's a risk, but it could create enough chaos for us to slip past the palace guards unnoticed." Caleb frowned, but he trusted Zara. He knew she understood her world far better than he did. "How do we trigger this rebellion?" "There's a group of rebels here," Zara explained. "They've been fighting against my mother's rule for years, but they're small and unorganized. If we make the right move, I can get their attention. They'll help us. But it won't be easy. We'll have to move fast, and we'll need to get to the rebel leader without being caught." Caleb was silent for a moment, thinking about what was at stake. If they failed, it would be over for both of them. The Queen's forces would hunt them down without mercy. But if they succeeded, they might finally be free. "I trust you," Caleb said quietly, meeting Zara's eyes. "Let's do it." Zara smiled, a small, determined smile. "We'll leave tonight. The cover of darkness will work to our advantage. The rebels meet in the east part of the city, near the old marketplace. It's risky, but it's our best chance." The two of them began to prepare. Caleb knew that once they started, there would be no turning back. They would be committing to a dangerous escape that could cost them everything. But as he watched Zara's calm, determined movements, he felt something he hadn't felt in days: hope. They slipped out of the hideout under the cover of night, their steps light and deliberate. The city was eerily quiet, the streets deserted as most of the population remained inside, unaware of the plan unfolding around them. As they neared the marketplace, Caleb's heart began to race. He kept his eyes on Zara, following her every move. She was calm, confident, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. She, too, knew the danger they were in. They'd reached the meeting spot without incident, but Caleb's nerves were on edge. Every shadow felt like it could hide a guard or a spy. But when they reached the rebel leader, a man named Rin, the plan suddenly felt more real. "Zara," Rin whispered, looking over his shoulder to make sure no one was watching. "You're here. It's time, isn't it?" Zara nodded, her voice low but steady. "Yes, we're leaving tonight. We need your help." Rin nodded, his expression serious. "You'll have it. The Queen won't stop you this time. We'll create the distraction you need." Caleb looked at Zara, his heart racing with anticipation. Tonight was their only chance. They had taken the first step, and now there was no going back. The night air was cold and still as Caleb and Zara stood in the shadows, waiting. The marketplace ahead of them was quiet, but the tension in the air was palpable. They had placed their trust in Rin and the rebel group, but now it was up to them to execute the plan. Zara's hands trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. This was the moment she had been preparing for. Tonight, she would defy everything her mother had planned for her, everything her world had told her she was supposed to be. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. But with Caleb by her side, she knew there was no turning back. The rebel group had positioned themselves at key spots throughout the city, ready to create the chaos Zora needed. The city's guards were already on high alert, but they had no idea what was coming. Zara's heart raced as she exchanged one last glance with Caleb. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb nodded, his face serious. "We don't have a choice. This is our chance." They moved quickly, slipping through narrow alleyways and quiet streets. As they neared the entrance to the palace grounds, Zora's thoughts raced. Her mother would be waiting for her, expecting her to return with the prince, to take her rightful place beside him. What would she do when Zora was gone? What would she think when her only daughter, her heir, defied her? As they approached the palace gates, the first wave of the rebellion began. It started with a series of loud explosions echoing through the city, followed by shouts and the sounds of combat. The guards were distracted, scrambling to respond to this sudden chaos. Zara and Caleb didn't waste a second. They sprinted toward the palace, slipping past the guards who were focused on the growing rebellion. The plan was working. The chaos was enough to cover their movements, but they still had to move quickly. Every moment counted. As they reached the outer walls of the palace, Zora paused. This was it, the point of no return. She turned to Caleb, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "Once we're inside, there's no going back. Are you sure about this?" Caleb's voice was firm. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They scaled the palace walls using ropes the rebels had provided. When they reached the top, they crouched low and made their way across the rooftop, avoiding the guards below. The palace was large, but it wasn't as heavily guarded on the rooftops. They had one shot at this. Zara's heart was pounding as they approached the main chamber. This was where her mother would be, waiting for her return. But Zara wasn't going back. She had made her decision. They reached the chamber doors and stopped. Zara took a deep breath before pushing them open. The queen was there, sitting on her throne, her regal presence filling the room. She looked up, her eyes narrowing, as she saw her daughter standing there, not the prince by her side, but Caleb. "You." The queen's voice was cold, filled with both disbelief and fury. "You dare defy me?" Zora's eyes met her mother's, her voice unwavering. "I do, Mother. I refuse to marry him. I refuse to live a life that isn't my own. And I choose Caleb." The queen stood, her face a mask of fury. "You are my daughter. You are the future of our people, and you would throw it all away for a human." Zara stepped forward, standing tall. "I am not just your daughter. I am a person with my own heart, my own choices. I will not be controlled any longer." The tension in the room was thick, and for a moment, everything was still. Then the queen spoke again, her voice softer but filled with a sense of finality. "Then you have made your choice, Zara. But know this, you will never be welcome here again. You have chosen a human over your own people." Zara didn't flinch. She looked at her mother one last time, her voice steady. "I've made my choice, and I stand by it." With that, Zara turned and took Caleb's hand. The moment had come. They had fought for this moment. And now, they would escape together, away from the palace, away from the queen, and into a future of their own making. As they turned to leave, the queen's voice echoed through the chamber one last time. "You will regret this, Zara. You will regret choosing him over your own blood." But Zara didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had made her decision, and with Caleb by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. The escape was only the beginning. As Caleb and Zara fled the palace, the noise of the rebellion echoed behind them. They could hear the distant clash of weapons, the shouts of rebel forces fighting for control, and the pounding of soldiers' boots as they rushed toward the chaos. It was all a blur to Caleb. His mind was focused on one thing: getting Zara to safety. They had reached the hidden passage beneath the palace, a narrow tunnel that led outside the city walls. It was their only way out. The passage was dark, and the air smelled damp and musty, but it was the only place where they might slip past the Queen's guards unnoticed. Zara, though running on adrenaline, couldn't help but glance over her shoulder every few seconds. She knew what they had just done. They had defied her mother, broken the laws of her people, and thrown away her royal life. But for the first time, in a long time, Zara felt free. She was finally choosing her own path. "Caleb," Zara said, her voice urgent but filled with determination. "We can't stop now. We have to keep moving. They'll be looking for us everywhere." Caleb nodded, but there was a weight in his chest that he couldn't shake. "I know, but we can't just run forever. The Queen won't let us go easily. She'll send everything she has after us." Zara didn't respond right away. She knew he was right. Her mother was a powerful queen, feared across the galaxy. She had armies, spies, and influence beyond what Zara could have ever imagined. If they were caught, there would be no escape. But Zara wasn't afraid. For the first time in her life, she was taking control. She had chosen Caleb, and she would stand by her decision. They had one shot at freedom, and she wasn't going to let anything or anyone take it away. As they moved through the tunnel, Caleb's hand never left hers. He could feel the same determination in her grip, but he also knew the dangers they were facing. They had no plan beyond escaping the palace, no backup, no allies waiting for them on the other side. If they were caught, it would be the end of everything. The tunnel finally opened up to a small clearing just outside the city. They had made it. Caleb could hardly believe it. The world beyond the city was vast and unknown, but it was theirs now. They were free, for the moment. But freedom came with its own set of dangers. Caleb and Zara stopped at the edge of the clearing, catching their breath. Zara's face was set with determination, but Caleb could see the fear in her eyes. "We have to keep moving," Caleb said softly, but his voice held a note of worry. He knew the Queen wouldn't stop. She would send forces to track them down, and they would need a place to hide, to plan their next move. Zara nodded, but her gaze turned toward the horizon. "I know, but for the first time in my life, I don't know what comes next. Everything I've ever known is gone." Caleb stepped closer, his voice low but reassuring. "It's just you and me now, Zara. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. We'll figure it out." Zara smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Together," she repeated, her voice full of resolve. As they prepared to leave the clearing, Caleb couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. They had made it this far. But the journey was far from over. They had only just begun. The Queen's wrath would be relentless, but Caleb and Zara were ready. No matter what challenges lay ahead, they had each other. And that was all they needed to face the future. The world outside the city was vast and silent. Caleb and Zara walked side by side through the dense forest, the moonlight filtering through the trees above. The path ahead was uncertain, and each step they took was a reminder of the dangers they faced. But with every step, Zara felt something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. The first few hours after escaping the palace had been a blur of emotions and survival. They had made it outside the city walls, but now they had to find a place to hide, somewhere they could catch their breath and plan their next move. Caleb had suggested they head toward the mountains in the distance, where the terrain was rugged and difficult to navigate. It was the perfect place to disappear, at least for a while. Zara glanced at him as they walked, grateful for his steady presence. Caleb had no idea what he was getting into when he first arrived on her world. He was just a human, stranded in an alien land, but somehow he had become her anchor. He was the one person she could trust completely, and she knew he would stand by her no matter what. "I've been thinking," Caleb said, breaking the silence between them. "We can't just keep running forever. We need a plan, something more than just hiding." Zara nodded, her thoughts mirroring his. "I know, but we have to be smart. The Queen won't stop looking for us. We need to gather allies, find others who want to see her rule end. But it won't be easy. It won't be easy for anyone, Caleb agreed. But we've already started something. Maybe we can find others who feel the same way. We can't be the only ones who want change. Zora's heart swelled at his words. Caleb wasn't just a man who had fallen into her world by accident. He had become a part of her fight, a part of her future. Together, they could make a difference. They continued to walk through the forest, the path growing steeper as they neared the mountains. Every so often, Zora would glance over her shoulder, half expecting to see the Queen's soldiers closing in on them. But so far, the only sounds around them were the calls of distant animals and the rustle of leaves in the wind. They had made it far enough for now. "We'll find a way," Zora said, her voice filled with determination. "We have to, for both of us." Caleb gave her a small smile, his expression softening. "We will, together." They reached the base of the mountains just before dawn, their legs sore from the long journey. The mountain pass they would use to climb higher was narrow and difficult to navigate, but it offered the kind of cover they needed. They had to keep moving, keep looking for safety, and a place to plan their next move. But for the first time in what felt like forever, Zora felt a glimmer of hope. As they began their climb, the sun began to rise, casting a warm golden light over the land. Zora looked out at the horizon, her heart filled with uncertainty, but also a newfound sense of purpose. Her future was no longer controlled by her mother or her royal obligations. It was hers to create. And with Caleb by her side, Zora knew they could face anything that came their way. The road ahead would be difficult, and there would be many challenges to overcome. But they had each other, and together, they would fight for the life they both deserved. The Queen's wrath might be relentless, but Zora and Caleb were ready. For the first time, they were truly free. And that was all that mattered.